You see, we are constantly in pursuit. We chase desires like the horizon, believing that if we run fast enough, far enough, we'll eventually arrive. But there is a kind of cosmic joke at play here, one that the universe tells with a smile. The more desperately you grasp at something, the more it slips through your hand. The tighter the grip, the less you retain. Now imagine this. You're at the center of your desire, not on the outside looking in, but right at the heart of it. You are not becoming, you are. You don't act from a place of lack, you act as if it's already yours. Because in truth, there's no separation between the desire and the one who desires. And here's the paradox. By no longer needing it, you finally align with it. To want something is to declare you are separate from it. But to embody it, to act as though it is a natural extension of your being, that is to erase the imaginary line that divides you from your dream. You no longer chase, you remember. And in that remembrance, you resonate with the very frequency of the thing itself. You become its echo before it speaks. But here's where the twist comes. You must let go, not out of apathy, not from boredom, but from understanding. Detachment is not rejection. It's intimacy without possession. You drop the need to control, the compulsion to manipulate outcomes. You step back, not because you don't care, but because you recognize the futility of forcing something that's already unfolding. It's like watching clouds drift. You don't push them. You simply lie back and observe, and they shape themselves. The dance begins. You act from fullness, not emptiness. You stop seeking validation from the outside world and realize you were never without it. And when you stop chasing what you want starts to chase you, like shadows in the afternoon sun, quietly following behind, never ahead, never lost, only waiting for you to turn around. When we desire something, what we often don't realize is that the very act of desiring creates a division between ourselves and the object of that desire. It's a subtle but profound psychological split. There is me over here and it over there. And this division is the source of much of our suffering. The more we want, the more we affirm that we do not already possess. This isn't just a mental observation. It's a posture of lack. We stand in the echo of absence, believing that fulfillment lies in the next moment, the next possession, the next identity we adopt. But this belief system is a trap, because it endlessly defers satisfaction to the future and denies it in the present. Desire, in its rawest form, is not wrong. It arises naturally, like hunger or thirst. But when desire becomes obsession, when we identify with the wanting itself, it transforms into an energy of separation. Wanting becomes a declaration, I do not have. And the universe, being a perfect mirror, reflects this internal reality back to us. If you say, I want love, what you're really saying is, I am without love. And everything around you will seem to confirm that state. You walk through life with a filter that keeps showing you your perceived emptiness because you are holding on to it, nurturing it, believing in it. This is the paradox most people miss. They believe that the intensity of their desire should somehow pull the object closer. But this is not how the deeper nature of reality works. The universe doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to alignment. It does not give based on the volume of your cry. It reflects the state of your being. And so, when you desire something from a place of lack, you're like a person trying to fill a cup with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much flows in, it empties just as fast, because the foundation is flawed. To want something is not simply to notice its absence. It is to wrap your identity in that absence. You become the person who wants, the one who is without. And this becomes your story. You repeat it to yourself, to others, to life. You believe it, act from it, speak from it. And the more you reinforce that story, the more rooted it becomes. And soon, it's not just something you want. It becomes who you think you are, the lonely person, the broke person, the failure, the one who almost had it, the one who never quite gets there. You become addicted to the drama of the distance between where you are and where you think you should be. This is why the ancient mystics, the sages, and even modern teachers all point toward a fundamental shift in perception. Not to reject desire, but to stop making it your identity. To stop bowing before it as if it were a god you had to please. Desire is a wave passing through the ocean of your consciousness, not something you need to worship or fear or chase. The problem is not the desire itself. It's the belief that you are separate from what you seek. The moment you believe you are incomplete, your entire way of being shifts. You begin to grasp, to cling, to manipulate, to control. You no longer trust the flow of life. You try to force outcomes because you've forgotten that you are not apart from life. You are life. And what flows through you is not less sacred than what lies outside of you. The tree does not desire sunlight in the way humans desire things. It simply opens to it, knowing it is part of the whole. It doesn't chase the sun, it grows toward it. The sun and the tree are not two separate things. They are one process, one unfolding. But we humans, with our elaborate egos and constant mental chatter, convince ourselves that we must get what we want by any means necessary. And this getting becomes a lifelong obsession. We pursue wealth, not realizing we already possess the richness of being. We chase love, not seeing that our very nature is already love. We seek status, not recognizing that the ground beneath our feet is already sacred. And in this endless pursuit, we miss the only place where fulfillment can truly be found, here and now. So to want is not just to notice what is missing. It is to create a story that says, I lack, and then to live from that story as if it were reality. But reality, in its deeper sense, doesn't conform to your stories. It mirrors your state. If you exist in a posture of emptiness, you will feel that emptiness echoed back to you, no matter how much you gain externally. You could win every prize the world offers and still feel hollow inside if you haven't first realized the completeness of your being. The tragedy is that many people spend their lives trying to fill this imagined gap with more things, more achievements, more relationships, more recognition. But the gap never closes because it was never real to begin with. It was created in the mind, a trick of perspective. You mistook the mirror for the thing itself. You thought the reflection held the key, when all along the source was within you. When you begin to recognize this, something shifts. You stop chasing shadows. You stop begging life to give you what you think you need. Instead, you return to the stillness, to the place within you that has never been lacking. And from that place, you can desire freely, not as one who lacks, but as one who plays. You can set intentions without becoming enslaved to them. You can act as though you already have what you want, not because you're lying to yourself, but because you're no longer buying into the illusion that you are separate from it. In this way, desire loses its grip. It becomes light, effortless, almost joyful. You are no longer a beggar knocking at the door of existence. You are the door. You are the home you've been trying to return to. And in realizing this, you no longer live in pursuit. You live in presence. You no longer wait for life to happen. You are what's happening. You no longer stand on the outside of your desires looking in. You realize you were never outside at all. To embody something is to collapse the illusion of distance between you and the thing you believe is outside of you. Most people live in a state of becoming. They speak, think, and act as if fulfillment is always somewhere else, just a bit further down the path. And so they keep walking, keep hoping, keep trying. But what they miss is that the very act of striving keeps them bound to the belief that they do not yet have. They say things like, "I am becoming successful," or "one day I will be happy," as if life operates on some delayed delivery system that responds only to future intentions. Yet life only ever responds to what is, not what might be, or what you hope it to be, but what you are now. When you embody something, when you act as though it is already yours, something profound happens. You stop sending out the signal of lack. You stop vibrating with the frequency of "I don't have," and you begin to radiate the essence of "I am." This is not pretending in the way most people think of it. It's not about faking it until you make it. It's about recognizing that the state of being you wish to experience must first be internalized. You don't wait for the world to change so you can feel different. You feel different, and the world begins to mirror that back to you. People often mistake this for arrogance or self-delusion. They say, "How can I act rich when I'm not?" Or "How can I walk with confidence when I still feel insecure?" But they miss the essence of what embodiment truly is. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about shifting your inner posture. When you sit in the vibration of abundance, even while your bank account says otherwise, you are not denying what is. You are transforming it. You are no longer reacting to the outer world as the ultimate authority. You become the source. This is the great reversal of ordinary thinking. In the usual way of life, we wait for evidence. We want to see proof before we believe. We want to feel love before we open our hearts. We want to be successful before we behave like someone who is. But this is completely backward. The external is always a mirror of the internal, not the other way around. To see something show up in your life, you must first embody the state that allows it in, and not in some future time. Now, so many people wake up every day and reinforce their limitations without even realizing it. They look in the mirror and say, "I'm still not where I want to be." They go through their day collecting proof of their lack. of how things haven't worked out, how others seem to be ahead, how they've been left behind. But in doing so, they deepen their sense of separation. And every thought, every emotion, every word becomes a brick in the wall that keeps what they want just out of reach. But when you shift to embodiment, you begin to live from the end. You no longer seek love, you become it. You no longer strive for peace, you express it. You don't wait for the world to hand you what you think you need. You realize that you already are what you've been looking for. And then quite magically the world begins to conform. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. Alignment is not effort, it is resonance. You tune yourself to the frequency of what you desire, and life begins to harmonize with that tone. You don't chase opportunities, they emerge. You don't beg for attention, you become magnetic. You don't grasp, you allow. And all of this begins when you embody the truth that nothing is missing, that everything you think you're seeking is already present in the form of a possibility waiting to take shape through you. See, embodiment is not just about belief, it is about being. It's about walking differently, speaking differently, thinking differently, not as an act of performance, but as a natural extension of your inner knowing. When you believe you are loved, your presence changes. When you believe you are worthy, your energy shifts. When you believe you are already enough, your need for external validation dissolves. And all of this radiates outward, drawing to you experiences, people, and circumstances that match your new state. But the moment you return to the identity of the one who lacks, the one who needs, the one who is not yet complete, you create resistance. You reintroduce the gap. And the universe, being neutral, simply continues to reflect that back to you. It is not punishing you, it is honoring your vibration. It always does. So the real work is not in forcing life to change. The real work is becoming so rooted in the energy of your desire already fulfilled that life has no choice but to meet you there. You act, speak, and move as one who already possesses what they once thought they lacked. You don't beg the universe, you become a channel for its expression. And the beauty of this shift is that it is available at any moment. You do not need permission, you do not need more time. You simply decide. You begin to live from the version of you who has already arrived. And then something miraculous begins to unfold. Not because you pushed, but because you surrendered to the truth that you were never separate to begin with. When you embody something, you no longer hope. It becomes inevitable, not through force, but through alignment. You don't need to convince the world. The world recognizes you, not as someone who is trying, but as someone who already is. The curious thing about desire, most people believe that wanting something more strongly makes it more likely to arrive. They invest tremendous emotional energy into their longing, hoping that this yearning, this aching for the thing they do not have, will somehow make it appear. But in reality, the more tightly you cling to the object of your desire, the more you reinforce the belief that it is absent. Wanting, in its conventional form, is not a bridge to having, it is a constant echo of not having. And the echo becomes your experience. The paradox of manifestation is that in order to receive what you desire, you must first let go of your need for it. Not because it's unimportant, not because you've given up, but because clinging repels and freedom invites. Most people are trapped in the belief that if they stop obsessing over what they want, it will slip away. They think detachment means they no longer care. But detachment is not indifferent. It is this spaciousness in which what you seek can actually arrive. When you are attached to a specific outcome, you are living in fear. Fear that it won't happen, fear that you are unworthy, fear that the universe might forget you. And this fear constricts. It narrows your vision, limits your options, and chokes the natural flow of life. Your desire becomes a weight, something heavy you carry around with a sense of urgency and pressure. But nothing blossoms under pressure. A flower does not bloom because someone pulls at its petals. It opens when it is ready, when the conditions are right, and when it is allowed to unfold. Attachment binds you to expectation. You expect it to look a certain way, to come in a certain form, to arrive on a particular timeline. And so when it doesn't, you suffer. You judge yourself, you judge life, you question whether you're doing something wrong. But the only thing that went wrong was the insistence that it must look the way your mind imagined. Life is not limited to your mental pictures. In fact, it is far more creative and intelligent than the small self that tries to control everything. To detach is to trust. It is to know that your desire, once felt, has already been heard. It is to understand that the seed you planted in consciousness does not need constant digging up to see if it's growing. You water it with belief. You shine light upon it with presence. But you don't obsess over it. You don't strangle it with anxiety. You allow it to root, to develop, to emerge in the perfect way at the perfect time. And while you wait, you live, not in absence, but in fullness, not in lack, but in presence. The space created by detachment is not empty. It is vibrant, it is alive, it is the womb of creation. And it is only in this space that something new can be born. The mind that is constantly grasping is too full to receive. It is like trying to fill a cup that is already overflowing with noise and need. But the quiet mind, the open heart, the relaxed body, these are the vessels through which the mysterious intelligence of life flows. It is often in moments of surrender that miracles happen. When you stop trying so hard, when you release your grip, when you take a breath and simply allow yourself to be, something shifts. Not because you've given up, but because you've stepped aside. You've moved out of the way. And in that space, life can surprise you. It can bring you something better than what you are holding on to so tightly. Attachment is based in the illusion of control, the belief that if you think hard enough, plan well enough, or visualize intensely enough, you can force the universe to obey your will. But this is a misunderstanding of your role. You are not here to force life, you are here to flow with it. Your job is to create the inner conditions, clarity, openness, alignment, and then let life do what it does best. Unfold. The tree does not demand the rain. It opens its roots and receives. The river does not push against its banks. It finds its way by yielding. And you, too, are meant to move with ease, not with strain. Letting go does not mean resignation. It means allowing. It means releasing your insistence that things happen in a way you've pre-approved. It means softening your grasp and trusting that the intelligence that beats your heart and spins the galaxies might just know what it's doing. And perhaps it even knows what you need better than you do. This is not an invitation to passivity. It is an invitation to harmony. You still take inspired action. You still listen, move, respond. But you no longer act from panic or desperation. You act from knowing. You act from peace. And this is the difference between struggle and flow, between forcing and allowing, between attachment and trust. When you detach, you become receptive. You no longer demand, you attract. You become like a magnet, not because you are chasing something, but because you are aligned. An alignment is always more powerful than effort. Effort may get you results, but alignment gets you miracles. There is something profoundly beautiful about being able to want something deeply and yet be free from the need for it to happen. This is maturity of spirit. It is the ability to hold a vision and not be enslaved by it, to move in the direction of your dreams with a light heart and an open palm, to know that you are already whole, already complete, and that nothing outside of you can add or subtract from your essence. This is where freedom lives, not in the achievement of all your goals, but in the release of the need for them to define you. You begin to see that your worth was never in question, that your joy is not dependent on outcomes, that the life you truly want is not waiting for you somewhere in the future. It is here, in the quiet space of now, where nothing is missing and everything is possible. We are taught, often from childhood, that the world is external to us, that we are separate beings navigating a universe made of things, people, and events that happen to us. This conditioning makes it easy to fall into the trap of believing that we must earn or chase what we desire. We are trained to think in terms of linear cause and effect. If I do this, then that will happen. If I try hard enough, work long enough, suffer sincerely enough, perhaps I will be worthy of receiving what I want. But the truth is far stranger and more magnificent. The outer world, what we call reality, is not something apart from you. It is not over there while you are over here. It is a mirror, a reflection of your inner state of being. Every experience you have is filtered through the lens of your consciousness. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your assumptions about yourself and the world, all of these create the pattern through which life unfolds around you. You do not merely live in the world, you are the world, appearing in a particular form. And so when you shift internally, the world shifts to match it. Not because it is responding to you as if it were a separate thing, but because you and it are one continuous movement, like a wave and the ocean. Most people look at the events of their lives and say, this happened to me, and that made me feel this way. They reverse the flow. But what if the feeling came first? What if your inner state is not the result, but the cause? The moment you begin to see that your inner landscape, the way you feel, the beliefs you hold, the assumptions you carry, is not a response to the world, but the generator of your experience of it. A doorway open. You are no longer a victim of circumstances. You become the artist of your reality. This is why it is said, act as if you already have it. Because having is not about acquiring something external. It is about embodying a state of being. When you feel wealthy, you begin to act in alignment with wealth. When you feel loved, you begin to speak and move as one who is already complete in love. And the world, being your reflection, responds accordingly. Not because it is doing something to you, but because it cannot help but mirror what you are. To live from the end is not to fake or pretend. It is to recognize that the outer world is simply the delayed echo of the inner one. Like shouting into a canyon and hearing your voice bounce back a moment later, life reflects what you send out, not just with your words, but with your frequency. And frequency is not determined by thought alone. It is shaped by belief, emotion, and presence. The feeling of already having something is far more potent than any affirmation or visualization, because it bypasses the intellect and speaks directly to the universe in its native language, vibration. But here's where many get confused. They try to conjure the feeling of having while secretly still dwelling in the feeling of lack. They say the words, I have it, but inside they're vibrating with doubt, impatience, or frustration. And so the mirror does not change, because the signal has not changed. The world continues to reflect what they are, not what they want. This is why it is essential not just to perform, but to embody, to genuinely feel, not to convince yourself. How do you cultivate this? Not by effort, but by awareness, by turning your attention inward and becoming sensitive to your inner atmosphere. Notice how you feel when you speak about your desires. Are you relaxed, trusting, joyful? Or are you tense, anxious, and doubtful? These feelings are not secondary. They are the creative force. You are painting the canvas of life with your state of being. If you want the picture to change, you must change the hand that holds the brush. And yet, paradoxically, this change is not made through force. You cannot bully yourself into alignment. You cannot fake peace. What you can do is pause, breathe, drop into presence. Begin to feel the reality of your desire, not as something coming, but as something here. What would it feel like not to wait? What would it feel like to already be, to already have? Let that feeling sink into your bones. Let it guide your speech, your walk, your posture. Not because you are trying to impress the universe into giving you something, but because you are the universe, awakening to its own power. The mirror of life is exquisitely neutral. It does not judge. It does not play favorites. It simply reflects. If you frown at the mirror frowns back. If you smile, the mirror smiles. The mirror does not change until you do. And the moment you shift, the reflection begins to shift, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically, but always faithfully. This is not about bypassing reality. It is about redefining what you mean by real. Is something real only if you can see it with your eyes and touch it with your hands? Or is it also real in the invisible domain? The thoughts you think, the emotions you feel, the awareness that watches it all. The visible is born of the invisible. The seed hidden in the soil becomes the tree. The idea unseen in the mind, becomes the inventor. The world, which appears solid and external, is a living projection of your inner world. And so the work is always within. You do not chase the mirror. You don't try to polish it in the hopes it will smile at you. You look inward, shift your stance, and the mirror follows. This is the great secret that eludes those who are constantly seeking, those who hustle, plead, and bargain with life, never realizing that life is not an opponent or a dealer of cards. Life is a dance partner, always following your lead. When you stop trying to make the mirror change and start changing the image you are casting into it, everything transforms. Not because the world has suddenly become kinder, but because you are finally in harmony with the truth that you and the world are not two. You are not in the universe, you are the universe, appearing in a particular form, dreaming a particular dream. And when you awaken to this, even just a little, you no longer wait for the world to give you permission to feel good. You feel good, and the world adjusts. So you begin to walk through life not as a seeker, but as a creator, not as a beggar, but as a being who knows the mirror cannot help but reflect what is shown to it. And so you become more interested in your state than in your circumstances. You tend to your inner garden, knowing that the outer world is just the harvest of what you've grown inside. You water it with attention. You plant seeds of joy, gratitude, and expectancy, not because you're trying to get something, but because this is who you are when you remember, when you are not lost in the illusion of separation, when you are not looking for evidence, but being the evidence. And in this state, things flow, opportunities appear, doors open, not because you chased them, but because you aligned with them. The mirror at last reflects the beauty you've always carried within. Desire, when misunderstood, becomes a form of suffering. We are often told to pursue our desires, to go after what we want with passion and determination, but few stop to notice the contradiction at the heart of this pursuit. The more we chase something, the more we affirm we do not have it. The very act of yearning reinforces the sense of lack, and in this reinforcement we become trapped, not by the desire itself, but by our attachment to it. Attachment is not love, it is not clarity. It is a clinging, a tightening, a belief that without this one thing, this person, this outcome, this event, we cannot be whole. It is an unspoken message we send to life. I am not enough as I am. Fulfillment exists somewhere out there. And in doing so, we place our peace, our joy, our identity into the future, into conditions we cannot control, into illusions. But life does not work that way. It cannot be tricked by force or urgency. It responds not to your desperation, but to your surrender. It is in letting go, in releasing the grip, that the universe begins to move. This is the paradox at the core of spiritual manifestation. What you want most comes to you when you no longer need it to complete you. This doesn't mean you stop wanting. It means you stop needing. You can enjoy the taste of a desire without being devoured by it. You can hold the image of what you wish to experience while remaining rooted in the fullness of now. Detachment is not the absence of care. It is the presence of inner freedom. It is a spaciousness that says, this or something better. I am whole either way. Think of water. When clenched in your fist, it slips through your fingers. But when your hand is open, it can rest there, gently. So it is with life. The tighter you hold on, the more you chase, the more resistance you create. And resistance breeds delay. Why? Because resistance is fear disguised as control. It sends a signal to the universe. I don't trust. I don't believe I am supported. I must do this all alone. And life mirrors that belief faithfully. When you release the need, the urgency, the obsession, you signal something else entirely. Confidence, trust, alignment. You are no longer vibrating at the frequency of lack. You are embodying the energy of presence, of enoughness. And the universe responds to that, not because it is a vending machine, but because it is an extension of your own consciousness. The world does not give you what you beg for. It reflects who you are. And who are you when you let go? You are calm. You are open. You are in flow. You begin to notice beauty where before there was only struggle. You begin to receive what you once tried to force. This is not magic. It is not superstition. It is the natural rhythm of things. The tide comes in not because we scream at the ocean, but because it is time. And when you are aligned, you begin to dance with that timing, not battle against it. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means stepping back. It means remembering that you are not the doer of all things, but the witness through whom all things unfold. It means trusting that your desires, once clarified and felt, are already on their way, not because you push them, but because you opened the path. Surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the deep knowing that life already knows what you want and will deliver it in the right way, at the right time, if you do not block it with your panic. This is why acting as if you already have it is so powerful. Because in doing so, you step into the vibration of detachment. You are no longer waiting, you are living. You are no longer projecting into some imagined future, you are bringing that future into now. Not through force, but through being. Desire becomes suffering when it is tied to identity. When you say, I need this to be happy, you have already exiled your happiness. You've put it in the hands of conditions that change like the wind. But when you say, I am already whole, and this would be a lovely expression of that wholeness, everything shifts. You are no longer begging reality to complete you. You are inviting it to play with you. The mind, of course, will resist this. It will whisper, but if I stop wanting, how will I get anything? It doesn't understand that letting go of attachment is not the same as abandoning your vision. It is simply choosing not to suffer in its absence. It is choosing joy now, peace now, gratitude now. Because these are the very states that magnetize what you want, not as a reward, but as a mirror. And when things do arrive, as they often will when you stop chasing them, they come with ease, without the bitterness of struggle, without the residue of desperation, and you receive them with grace, because you are not clinging, you are not trying to possess, you are dancing, dancing with the rhythm of life, rather than marching against it. So much of suffering is self-inflicted. Not because life is cruel, but because we resist its natural movement. We insist that things must go this way, in this time, through this person. And in that space, everything changes. Not because you tried to make it change, but because you stopped trying so hard. You allowed space for grace to enter. You stopped screaming into the void and began to listen. And in the silence you heard the quiet hum of alignment. The sense that you and life were never separate to begin with. That you are not behind, that you are not lacking, that what is meant for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never meant for you. This is the art of detachment, not coldness, not passivity, but deep presence, inner sufficiency, a quiet knowing that you do not need to chase what you are already aligned with, that your job is not to control every detail, but to stay in harmony with yourself, to feel what you want, embody its energy, release the grip, and watch as the world begins to shift, not as a bribe, but as a reflection. You are not here to strive endlessly. You are here to remember, to return to the truth that you are whole now, that you are not waiting for life to begin. It is already happening. And the more you let go of your need to force it, the more it will flow, like water, effortlessly through your open hands. You see, the great illusion we tend to live by is that life is always about to begin, that something grand waits just around the bend, a moment, an opportunity, a permission, a perfect alignment. And so we keep rehearsing in our minds for a future performance, as if today were merely a practice round for some real event that has not yet arrived. But the grand cosmic joke is this: there is no later performance, there is no dress rehearsal. This, right here, right now, this is your moment. The curtain is already up, the lights are on, and the audience is you and God and the entire universe witnessing your being. And if you could only see that, if you could truly feel that, you would no longer wait, you wouldn't ask if you were ready, you wouldn't wonder if you were good enough or if you'd earned your place. You'd simply begin. Because acting as if this is your time is not about arrogance or pretense. It is about awareness. A deep and trembling awareness that this moment, fleeting and unpromised, is more sacred than any imagined future. We've all been trained to postpone our living, to believe that first we must become something other than what we are. We must fix ourselves, perfect our image, gather credentials, or receive blessings from someone greater than ourselves before we can finally be who we came here to be. But that's not how life works. Trees do not ask permission to bloom. Stars do not hold back their light until they feel worthy, and the river does not check the calendar before it begins to flow. It simply flows. It exists. And in that existence, it fulfills its purpose. You too are here to exist, to express. Not in some future date when you've tidied up the imperfections of your soul, but now, in this exact configuration of who you are. You are not lacking time. You are drowning in it only because you're convinced that the tide will carry you somewhere better than here. But there is no better here than here. You were not born to wait. You were born to awaken. To awaken to the deep truth that your life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And you cannot live that mystery by deferring it. To act as if this is your time is to realize that it has always been your time. It was your time when you fell. It was your time when you failed. It was your time when you didn't believe it. And it's your time even now, especially now. When something in your chest stirs and wonders, could this really be true? Yes, it could. And it is. Time, after all, is not something you own or possess. It is something you are. You are time made conscious. You are the present personified. And so to postpone yourself is to deny the very essence of your being. You're not here to build up to life. You're here to live it. Fully, recklessly, beautifully. Not with carelessness, but with carefreeness. With the audacity to say, I will not die with my song still inside me. When you live as if this is your time, something miraculous begins to happen. Life starts to respond to you, not as a hesitant participant, but as a confident creator. You begin to notice the synchronicities that were always there, but you were too preoccupied with your doubt to see them. You begin to notice the way your presence changes a room, not because you're special in an egoic sense, but because you're here fully, unapologetically present. You see, the magic of living is not in getting more time. It's in dissolving the illusion that you need more of it. Life doesn't wait for your permission. It dances. And you can either join the dance or sit by the wall waiting for someone to invite you. But no one will. because you are the invitation. You are the guest of honor at your own life, and the celebration has already begun. To act as if this is your time is to trust that you belong. Not later, not once you've earned it, but now. It is to speak your truth, to take your step, to breathe fully into the present, with no rehearsals left. Because no matter what your mind tells you, this is not a trial run, this is not the prologue, this is the page with your name on it. This is the moment the ink meets the paper. This is the heartbeat of destiny aligning with your own. So stop waiting. Stop seeking approval from a world that doesn't even know what it's waiting for. The clock won't chime in recognition. The sky won't open in applause. But deep within, if you're still enough, you'll feel the universe whisper, "You're right on time." We spend so much of our lives under the impression that something greater is just ahead of us, that a more perfect moment will arrive, and in that elusive future we will finally begin to live as we were meant to. It's a compelling illusion. The sense that we are in a constant state of preparation, refining ourselves, waiting for some internal or external signal that will announce, "Now is the time." But that signal never comes, not because it isn't real, but because it has already sounded. It sounded the moment you took your first breath. The moment you became aware of yourself in the world, time began not as something linear, not as something you chase, but as something you are. The tragedy lies in the waiting. We delay our dreams, we withhold our voice, and we dim our light out of the belief that today is not quite worthy of our full presence. We treat this moment like a stepping stone to something better, something more meaningful, more rewarding, more prepared. But what if this moment, imperfect as it is, uncertain as it feels, is already holy? What if you didn't need to upgrade yourself, heal more, earn more, or be more in order to begin? What if you stopped rehearsing for your life and simply lived it? You see, the problem is not that we are unprepared. The problem is that we are caught in a myth. A myth that whispers that life is always about to begin, and that this moment, this ordinary moment, is somehow not enough. We have been trained to undervalue the present, to believe that tomorrow is where fulfillment hides. And so we postpone our joy, our courage, our purpose, until the planets align, until we feel confident, until the fear disappears. But the truth is, fear never truly leaves you. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build by stepping into the moment. And the planets? They've already aligned the second you decided to breathe deeply and be here now. Every day you are given 1,000 chances to act as if this is your time. Yet so often you give those chances away. You hesitate to speak up because you assume your voice isn't yet powerful enough. You hesitate to start that project because you believe there's more research to be done. You hold back from love, from creativity, from expression, because you've convinced yourself that the stage isn't ready. But the truth is, the stage has always been set. You are the one delaying the performance. Not because you aren't capable, but because you've forgotten that this isn't a practice round. This is it. This is the show. Imagine a flower refusing to bloom until it believed it had permission. Imagine the sun withholding its light until it felt accepted. It would seem absurd, wouldn't it? And yet that is how many people live, holding back their light, their bloom, because they're waiting for some signal that may never come. Life doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It asks for participation. It asks for you to realize that this moment, messy and unpolished, is more than enough. It is everything. There is no greater agony than the regret of unused potential, not because you weren't good enough, but because you didn't trust the timing of your own soul. You postponed your brilliance, waiting for a mythic sign, when all along the sign was your own heartbeat. The simple fact that you are alive is proof that this is your time. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. This is not to say that preparation, growth, or reflection are unimportant. They have their place. But there comes a moment when preparation becomes avoidance, when growth becomes an excuse, when reflecting becomes a distraction. You do not become who you are by waiting. You become who you are by doing, by stepping into the unknown with trembling hands and an open heart, knowing full well that imperfection will greet you. But so will life, so will joy, so will truth. To act as if this is your time is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of reverence, a deep bow to the sacredness of now. It's acknowledging that while you may not have everything figured out, you have enough to begin. And beginning is the most courageous act of all, because it breaks the spell of inertia. It disrupts the cycle of waiting. It reclaims the power that has always belonged to you. People often say, "I'm not ready." But who decides readiness? Who is the authority on the perfect moment? The world won't send you an invitation. The universe doesn't hand out schedules with your destiny printed on them. Your readiness isn't measured by your perfection. It's measured by your willingness. And willingness only exists in the now, not in the later, not in the maybe, in this very breath. So look around. This moment may not be glamorous. It may be quiet. You may feel unseen, uncertain, or overwhelmed. But this is still your moment. The world may not clap, no one may notice, but that doesn't matter, because you know. You'll feel the quiet thrill of finally stepping into yourself. You'll feel the gentle power of no longer deferring your existence. You'll feel the soul-deep truth that you didn't have to wait after all. The great irony is that once you begin, once you decide to act as if this is your time, life begins to meet you where you are. Doors open. People appear. Energy returns. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You no longer stood outside of your life. You stepped into it. And that changes everything. This is your time. It always was. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are finally present. You're finally saying yes to what already is. And that yes, that sacred, trembling yes, is the most powerful thing you can ever give to the world. Time is often seen as something we chase, something that slips through our fingers like grains of sand, something outside of us that we are constantly trying to manage, control, and capture. But this is a misunderstanding. Time is not a force that moves around you. It is not a river you are standing beside, watching it flow. You are not separate from time. Your very being, your thoughts, your awareness of this moment, your breath, your heartbeat. This is why the idea of waiting for the right time is so deceptive. You can't wait for what you already are. You can't be separate from what is fundamentally interwoven into the fabric of your existence. When people say they are waiting for the right time to start something meaningful, to pursue a dream, speak their truth, or become who they feel they're meant to be, they're unknowingly placing themselves in opposition to their own nature. They treat time like a gatekeeper, a judge, or a distant authority that will one day permit them to live freely. But time is not outside of you, giving you permission. It is within you, begging for your participation. Imagine the absurdity of a flame waiting for fire, or a wave waiting for the ocean. That's how strange it is to believe you must wait for time to begin. You are not waiting for your moment. You are the moment. Every cell in your body pulses with the rhythm of now. Every breath you take is a declaration that the universe is happening through you, not apart from you. The second you stop seeing time as a condition and start seeing it as a state of being, your entire experience of life changes. You begin to understand that you carry the power of the present with you wherever you go. We often get caught in the trap of measuring time by clocks and calendars, as if a number or a date holds more truth than our own awareness. But clocks are just instruments, tools we've created to organize ourselves. They don't measure meaning. They don't measure readiness. They can't tell you when your soul is ready to speak, to create, to rise. Only your awareness can do that. And when you truly feel into the present moment, without resistance, without running, you realize that you are not late. You never were, because time is not passing you by. It's unfolding. As it is unfolding, what would happen if you let go of the idea that time is running out? What would change if you stopped seeing yourself as a bystander in your own life? You would begin to live with a depth you've never touched before. You would stop measuring your worth by what you've accomplished and start seeing your presence as inherently meaningful. You would understand that nothing outside of you needs to happen before you begin. The beginning is in your breath. Most of us don't realize how much of our energy is spent in a tug-of-war with time. We regret the past. We fear the future. We live in the shadow of what was, or in the anxiety of what could be. And in doing so, we miss the miracle of what is. That the present is not empty. It is not a blank space between memories and plans. It is the most alive place you can possibly be. And when you inhabit it fully, you no longer need to chase time, because you realize you are it. You are the unfolding. You are the movement. You are the dance. There is no need to hurry when you are already where you're meant to be. There is no need to panic when you realize that the moment you've been searching for is the one you're already in. This doesn't mean you stop growing or that you give up on change. It means you stop believing that you're separate from the process. Growth happens now, not in the future. Joy happens now, not when everything is perfect. Healing happens now, not when the pain disappears. It's all happening now because now is all there is. This understanding doesn't come from thinking. It comes from being. From quieting the frantic mind long enough to hear the deeper rhythm underneath all the noise. That rhythm is not chaotic. It's not rushed. It's not overwhelmed. It is spacious, eternal, and gentle. It doesn't demand that you rush to prove yourself. It simply asks you to remember. Remember? that you're not a separate being trying to survive time. You are the awareness through which time flows. And that awareness is timeless. When you step into this knowing, a profound shift occurs. You stop waiting. You stop postponing your joy, your truth, your expression. You realize that you don't need to get somewhere else to be whole. You are whole in this breath. You are complete in this presence. You are not preparing to be alive. You are alive. And life is not asking you to do more, achieve more, or become more in order to earn your place. Life is simply asking you to show up, to be here, to be you. And when you do, you will see that the timing was always right. That the moment you feared you weren't enough was the moment you already had everything. That the waiting was a dream, and waking up was just a matter of seeing clearly. You don't need more time, you need more presence. You don't need the future to bring you what you seek. You need to realize that the source of all you long for is within you. Now, because time isn't ticking toward your destiny, it's radiating from your being. So the next time you hear yourself say, "It's not the right time," pause. Ask yourself, who taught me that time is something I must earn? Who told me I had to wait? And then return to yourself. Feel your breath, feel your aliveness, and realize you are not late. You are not early. You are not outside the flow. You are the flow. You are not chasing time. Time is beating through your heart. This is not a countdown. It's a calling. And the call is simple. Be here. Be now. Be you. The idea that we must feel ready before we take action is one of the greatest lies we unconsciously live by. It sounds reasonable, even wise, to prepare, to wait until you're certain, until you feel strong, until fear has subsided and clarity has fully arrived. But readiness is a mirage. It shimmers in the distance, promising comfort and confidence, yet the closer you try to get to it, the more it vanishes. You begin to realize that it was never meant to be caught. It was only ever a projection, a mental trick designed to keep you safe in your familiar discomfort. You think you'll start once you're sure. You'll speak once your voice no longer shakes. You'll begin once the path is clear, once you feel brave. But what if that moment never comes? What if the strength you're waiting for isn't something that shows up before the action, but something that awakens because of it? The illusion of readiness has kept more people stagnant than failure ever has. People don't get stuck because they try and fall. They get stuck because they never actually listen to it. You've had the one, you've actually had it. They're in something. They're in it. They're in something that makes it wrong. They feel it, perceive it as such by themselves. And yet, the truth is, fear is not a signal to stop. It's often a sign we're standing on the threshold of growth. The trembling of the soul before a new beginning is not weakness. It is sacred. It means you care. It means you're stepping out of your comfort zone and into the unknown. And the unknown is where all transformation lives. You do not become who you're meant to be by avoiding uncertainty. You become by walking through it with your eyes open and your heart alive. The illusion of readiness is rooted in the mistaken belief that life owes us certainty, that we will somehow know without a shadow of a doubt when it is time to leap. But life doesn't operate on guarantees. It moves through trust, not logic, through surrender, not control. You can study every angle, weigh every risk, gather every piece of information, and still feel unprepared. Why? Because readiness is not a condition of the mind, it is a decision of the heart. Most people are not afraid of starting, they are afraid of starting imperfectly. They fear the mess, the vulnerability, the judgment, the possibility of not getting it right. But imperfection is not a mistake. Every master was once a beginner. Every voice that commands the room once cracked with doubt. Every step forward begins with a stutter, a wobble, a tremble. That's how life works. You don't wait until you're fearless to begin. You begin, and in doing so you discover the courage you thought you lacked. The idea that you must feel ready is also often a disguised form of self-protection. It allows you to avoid risk while pretending that you are simply being patient or wise. But what you're really doing is giving your power to a future version of yourself that may never exist. You imagine a braver you, a more talented you, a more certain you, who will one day do the thing you're afraid to do now. But that future self can only come into being through the choices you make in this moment. You can't become confident without stepping into spaces where confidence is required. You can't develop your voice without using it. You can't create your life without first disrupting your comfort. And so the cycle continues. You wait. You hesitate. You tell yourself that it's not time yet. You scroll. You fantasize. You plan. You rehearse. And all the while, life is passing through you, offering you moment after a moment where you could have begun, where you could have whispered yes, even if your hands were shaking. But instead, you wait, because you think you're supposed to feel something first, a green light, a divine sign, an inner peace. But what if that green light only turns on after you take the first step? What if the signal you're waiting for is your own action? You don't feel your way into action, you act your way into feeling. You don't wait to be ready. You become ready by daring to begin. There is a shift that happens when you decide to stop worshipping the illusion of readiness and start honoring the truth of this moment. Suddenly, things that once felt impossible begin to feel accessible, not because the fear is gone, but because you've stopped letting fear be the gatekeeper of your destiny. Think of all the people who never published the book, never started the business, never told the truth, never pursued the calling, not because they weren't capable, but because they believed they weren't ready. What a waste of spirit. What a tragedy of potential. And yet, we all do it. We all have those things inside us that we tell ourselves we'll do one day. But one day is a thief. It steals from the now. It convinces you that the future is more secure than the present, when in truth, the present is the only ground you'll ever stand on. To act without feeling ready is not recklessness, it is wisdom. It is the wisdom that understands that life is not a series of perfectly timed events, but a dance with uncertainty. And in that dance, you don't learn the steps by thinking about them. You learn by moving, by stumbling, by feeling the rhythm with your whole body. You trust that the floor will be there when your whole body. You trust that something within you already knows what to do, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. When you let go of the illusion of readiness, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. You stop asking for permission and begin giving yourself the freedom to live. You stop measuring your worth by your preparedness and start honoring your courage to simply begin. And that beginning, no matter how small or shaky, is enough, because it means you've remembered something essential, that your life is not a future event. It is this breath, this choice, this moment. And so, don't wait to feel ready. Feel the fear and act anyway. Feel the doubt and speak anyway. Feel the imperfection and create anyway. You are not here to be flawless. You are here to be real, to be alive, to step into the sacred mess of becoming, not when it's messy and beautiful and raw. Because this is your time, not because you feel ready, but because you are. You see, the trouble with most of us is not that we think. Thinking is a marvelous tool, a beautiful servant. It may be so. The voice is merely a compulsive internal monologue that never seems to shut off, and we begin to believe that this voice is merely a precarious mental monster. Now, imagine for a moment a river flowing effortlessly. It doesn't need to think about where it's going. It simply moves. It responds. It dances with rocks and bends with the earth. It isn't anxious about tomorrow's rain or last year's drought. And in that way it is profoundly intelligent. This is what life is like when we are not constantly trying to manage it with thought. Life, but we're so afraid of silence, not just the silence outside, but the silence within. So we fill it with plans, judgments, worries and regrets. All this noise. And we call it being responsible or being prepared, but the mind, left unchecked, becomes a chronic noise machine, obsessed with labeling, predicting and controlling. It thinks it is protecting us, but in truth it is often just protecting its own illusion of importance. When we stop for a moment, when we simply listen, not with the intent to reply or categorize, but simply to hear, we find something astonishing. A space, a stillness, a kind of quiet intelligence that doesn't need to think about itself in order to be itself. And in that space the world becomes luminous. A leaf becomes enough. The wind becomes a symphony. The present moment, which we so often overlook, reveals its infinite depth. The trick is not to violently silence thought. That's just more noise pretending to be quiet. Rather, let thought come and go as clouds drift across the sky. You don't try to grab the clouds, you just watch. They're not you. You are the sky, the ever-present awareness in which these clouds arise and dissolve. This isn't about escaping reality, it's about entering it more deeply. Because in that state of no thought, you begin to taste what it means to simply be. Not as an idea, not as a self-immue, but as the naked, unfiltered presence of this moment. There, everything is complete. You don't need to become anything. You already are. The mind is a magnificent instrument. It has given us language, art, science, architecture, and poetry. It can reason, imagine, plan, solve, and create. Yet, like any tool, it was meant to be used, not to be worshipped. The difficulty arises when we confuse the tool for the master, when we forget that we are not our thoughts, but the one who observes them. The thinker and the thought are not one and the same. And this confusion is where most of our inner suffering begins. Thought, by its very nature, is fragmented. It breaks the world into pieces, good and bad, success and failure, past and future, self and other. These categories help us navigate the world, but they also create illusion. We become trapped in dualities, in comparisons, in constant judgments. We create a narrative about who we are, what we've done, what we should be doing, what others think, and where we are going. This narrative becomes our identity, but it is only a story made of symbols and images, not the actual experience of life itself. We spend most of our time inhabiting this story, and in doing so we miss the actual richness of the present moment. We are always somewhere else, in memory or anticipation, in regret or fantasy. The mind, relentless in its activity, drags us from the now into a never-ending swirl of thought, and yet we rarely question it. We assume that this running monologue in our heads is me. We say, I am worried, instead of worrying thoughts are passing through my awareness. We say, I am a failure, instead of recognizing that thoughts about failure are arising right now. This is the core of the problem, the identification with thought. When we believe every thought that comes into our heads, we are no longer free. We become slaves to mental noise, tossed around like a boat in a storm. The more we believe we are our thoughts, the more we suffer. If the thoughts are anxious, we become anxious. If the thoughts are critical, we feel ashamed. If the thoughts are angry, we act out in frustration. But if we can begin to see that These are just thoughts, not reality. We create space between who we are and what arises within us. The voice in your head is not inherently wise. Much of it is conditioned. It repeats things you've been told, beliefs you've absorbed, fears you've inherited. It speaks in loops and patterns, often repeating the same worries, doubts, and criticisms over and over again. It rarely says anything new. And it doesn't stop just because you ask it to. In fact, trying to silence the mind with more thought is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The mind cannot quiet the mind. It only knows how to talk about quiet, analyze it, freedom comes not from controlling thought, but from disidentifying with it. From seeing that the stream of thought is something that happens within you. It is not you. You are not the thoughts. You are the awareness in which those thoughts arise and dissolve. The awareness is constant, still, silent and spacious. It has no need to cling to any particular idea or belief. It is like the sky, untouched by the weather, thoughts, emotions, sensations. They are like clouds. This realization does not come through more thinking. It comes through a kind of watching, a soft, non-judgmental noticing. When a thought arises, you watch it. When a worry comes, you let it pass. When a judgment appears, you observe it without resistance. You begin to notice how thoughts come and go, how they are often repetitive, how they are rarely true in any ultimate sense. And in that noticing, in that awareness, something shifts. You realize that you don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to chase every mental rabbit down its hole. In fact, the more you watch your thoughts without engaging them, the more they begin to quiet on their own. Like a child seeking attention, the mind chatters when it is indulged. But when it is met with presence rather than panic, it softens. It begins to rest. And in that space, you feel something deeper. A presence, a clarity, a stillness that is not thought, not emotion, but something far more real. This presence was never absent. It has always been here, underneath the noise, waiting patiently to be recognized. It is the real you, not the thinker, but the one who sees, not the story, but the stillness beneath the story. It doesn't need to be named or described because it is not a thing among other things. It is the ground of your being. And when you live from that place, thought returns to its proper role. It becomes the servant again, not the master. So the point is not to demonize thinking. We need it. But we must no longer let it dominate. We must stop bowing to every thought as if it were the truth. Instead, we bow to what is deeper. We rest in what is silent. We learn to live not as a bundle of ideas, but as pure awareness, fully here, fully alive, untouched by the storms of the mind. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people think of it as an absence, a void, a lack of something. But true silence is not a vacuum. It is not dead space. It is full, alive, rich with presence. It is not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of depth. When you begin to taste this kind of silence, you realize that it carries an intelligence far greater than anything the thinking mind could ever produce. The thinking mind, for all its cleverness, is limited. It sees only fragments. It interprets reality through filters, through language, concepts, beliefs, and memories. It tries to break the world down into manageable parts. This is helpful in many ways. It helps you remember your name, cross the street, pay your bills, but it can't grasp the whole. It cannot perceive the totality of this moment, because the moment is always larger than thought. The mind always arrives a little too late. By the time it thinks about the now is already gone. But silence does not think about the moment. Silence is the moment. It is the unfiltered experience of now. It is the direct knowing, the sensing, the being, without the need to label or analyze. When you are silent, not just on the outside, but inwardly, something extraordinary begins to happen. You begin to see, not with the eyes alone, but with your entire presence. You begin to listen, not just to sounds. You feel the hum of life itself moving through everything. And in that stillness, intelligence arises. This intelligence is not the result of effort. It doesn't come from trying to figure things out. In fact, it often shows up when the mind finally gives up trying. Think of all the times clarity appeared not when you chased it, but when you stopped. When you were walking, resting, bathing, watching the sky. The insight comes when you're not looking for it. Because true understanding doesn't come from thinking, it comes from awareness. And awareness is born in silence. The more space you allow, the more this intelligence has room to speak. But it doesn't speak in words, it speaks in sensations, in clarity, in sudden knowing. It is subtle, so it cannot be heard over the noise of constant thought. That's why silence is not just the absence of sound. It's the absence of inner resistance, the absence of grasping, the absence of needing to know what everything means. When that inner movement quiets, you begin to receive life directly, as it is. Most people are uncomfortable with this kind of silence. They equate it with boredom or loneliness, so they reach for their phones, turn on the television, check the news, start another conversation. Anything to avoid the stillness. But in doing so, they miss the one thing that could truly bring them home. Because in that stillness is the doorway to something sacred, a stillness that was never created and can never be destroyed. It doesn't belong to any religion, belief, or philosophy. It is simply what is when the mind no longer dominates. This silence is not passivity. It's not numbness or withdrawal. On the contrary, it is deeply awake. You can be fully active in the world and still carry this silence within you. You can listen to someone speak, feel their emotions, respond with kindness, and all the while remain rooted in that deep quiet. In fact, when you are rooted in silence, your actions become more aligned, more authentic, because they are no longer driven by the noise of ego or fear. They arise from clarity, from presence. In silence, there is no need to defend anything. There is nothing to protect. You don't need to prove yourself, explain yourself, or convince others. You're no longer trying to become someone, because you've remembered that you already are. Not as a role, not as a title, but as awareness itself. And this awareness doesn't need fixing. It doesn't need improving. It only needs to be noticed. This is why all the ancient traditions spoke of the power of silence, not just outer quiet, but inner stillness. The kind you find when you stop seeking and simply allow things to be. When you no longer run from your discomfort, but sit with it. when you no longer chase pleasure but observe the craving. In that space, the truth of who you are begins to emerge, not because you thought your way there, but because you listened your way there. The world is full of noise, voices shouting for attention, ideas competing for dominance, fears clamoring to be heard. But underneath it all, there is a deep hum, a current of life, a presence that never left. It's not loud. It doesn't demand anything, but it's there, waiting, patiently. And when you finally get quiet enough, you hear it. You don't just hear it, you become it. The trees know this silence. The ocean, too. The stars don't have to speak to shine. The earth doesn't explain its purpose. It simply is. And in that being there is wisdom. A wisdom that doesn't need words. A knowing that doesn't need confirmation. You were born with this knowing. You carried it as a child before the world taught you to explain everything. It's still there, beneath the layers of noise, of thought, of identity. So when you feel lost or overwhelmed, don't add more thinking. Don't try to outthink the chaos. Instead, return to silence. Sit, breathe. Feel the space around your thoughts. Notice the gaps between your words. Let go of needing to understand. And in that stillness, watch what emerges, not from effort, but from surrender. Because the truth is not far away. It doesn't need to be sought. It simply needs to be heard, and it speaks in silence. In a world that teaches us to strive constantly, to fix, to improve, to chase the next better version of ourselves, everything is geared toward effort. There is a cultural obsession with doing. If something feels wrong, we must immediately act. If there's discomfort, we try to escape it. If there's uncertainty, we scramble to find certainty. But there is a deeper rhythm to life, one that doesn't require this incessant mental push. And sometimes, what is most needed is not another strategy, not another mental construct, but surrender. To surrender is not to give up. It's not to collapse into passivity or despair. It is to allow what is to be, without resistance. It is the act of loosening your grip on the illusion that you are the one controlling everything with your thoughts, because you're not. The mind likes to imagine itself as the master, but it is merely a function, like digestion or breathing. Thoughts arise on their own. You don't sit there choosing each one. They appear, pass through, and fade. And yet, you identify with them, believe in them, argue with them, as if they are the ultimate truth. But what happens when you stop arguing? When you stop chasing? When you stop trying to fix every little discomfort the mind throws at you? What happens is space. Space opens. And in that space, you begin to sense something that was always present, but covered by noise, the natural intelligence of being. This is not the intelligence of figuring things out. It is the intelligence of life itself, the way your body knows how to heal, how the seasons know when to turn, how the tide knows when to rise and fall. That same intelligence lives in you. Surrender does not mean you become a doormat. It doesn't mean you say yes to everything or avoid responsibility. Quite the opposite. It means you act from a different place, not from the ego's grasping, but from a deeper alignment. The kind of action that comes from surrender is clean, clear, unforced. It doesn't leave you drained. It arises naturally like a breath. But in order to touch that level, you must first be willing to stop pushing. You must be willing to say, I don't know what this moment means, and I don't need to. I will allow it to be. The trouble is, the mind hates not knowing. It wants to define everything immediately. It wants to label every feeling, analyze every possibility, and calculate every outcome. But reality is not so easily defined. It is vast, mysterious, and always in motion. So when the mind clings to a fixed understanding, it creates tension. That tension becomes anxiety. The solution isn't to find better thoughts. It is to realize that you are not your thought. You are the awareness behind them. And that awareness doesn't need to fix anything. It simply sees. To surrender is to rest as that awareness. To let thoughts rise and fall without attaching to them. To let emotions move through like waves without trying to manipulate or escape them. It is to trust that life knows how to unfold, and that you don't need to mentally supervise every inch of the process. This doesn't mean you won't plan or take action or solve problems when needed. But it means those actions won't come from desperation. They will come from presence. Presence is the key. When you are present, deeply present, even your problems look different. They are no longer urgent emergencies you must escape. They are simply part of the unfolding. You might still prefer that something be different, but you are no longer at war with what is. And in that peace, clarity arises, the kind of clarity that no amount of thinking can provide. Clarity not as a thought, but as a felt sense, a knowing without needing to know why you know. Surrender brings you into relationship with life rather than standing apart from it. When you try to control everything, you are essentially declaring that life itself can't be trusted, that existence must obey your mental blueprint. But life is not a machine, and it doesn't answer to ego. It flows like a river, unpredictable and wild. To surrender is to stop trying to dam the river and instead learn to float. It doesn't mean you let it carry you anywhere, but that you work with the current rather than against it. You steer gently, but you don't panic every time the water turns. There is great peace in surrender. Not the peace of everything going your way, but the peace of not needing it to. The peace that comes from finally relaxing your inner grip, from no longer needing to be the one holding everything together. Because you were never holding it together. That was just the illusion of control. Life has been carrying you all along, beating your heart, growing your hair, spinning the planet. When you stop pretending to be the master, you remember that you are already part of the dance. This is why surrender is so powerful. Not because it makes life easier, but because it brings you back into harmony with what is. You stop arguing with reality. You stop trying to mentally sort out every detail. You breathe, you allow, you feel. And in doing so, you begin to notice something extraordinary. You are already whole. You were never broken. There is nothing wrong with this moment. Nothing missing. Nothing that must be solved before peace can return. Peace is already here, waiting in the silence beneath your resistance. So when the mind becomes restless, when you feel overwhelmed or lost, don't rush to figure it all out. Don't reach for more thoughts. Sit quietly. Breathe. Feel your body. Notice the sensations, the sounds, the breath. Don't try to escape the moment. Sink into it. Let it unfold. Let it be as it is. And watch what happens. Without your interference, without your need to fix, something begins to shift. Something deeper than thought begins to move. And that something is you, not the small self, but the vast, quiet presence beneath it all. The idea that you are not the thinker of your thoughts may sound strange at first, even absurd. But if you sit with it long enough, you'll begin to sense its truth. Thoughts arise, one after another, like waves on the ocean. You don't summon them. You don't create them. They come, unbidden, spontaneously, continuously. One moment you're thinking about what to eat, the next about a childhood memory, the next about an argument from 5 years ago. Who is doing this? If you were truly the thinker, wouldn't you be able to stop? Wouldn't you have full control over what enters your mind and when? But you don't. Thoughts come and go like clouds drifting across the sky, sometimes soft and harmless, sometimes dark and stormy. You cannot predict them, you cannot command them, yet, strangely, you claim ownership of them. I am angry, you say. I'm afraid. But is that true? Or is anger simply moving through you like wind through a tree? Is fear something you are, or something you are temporarily experiencing? The mind loves to attach identity to thought. It says, this is me thinking. But if you were the thinker, could you stop thinking at will? Try it now. Try not to think. Not by thinking about not thinking, but by simply noticing the space between thoughts, even for a few seconds. What you'll discover is that when thoughts slow down, there remains something else, awareness. Pure, silent, watching awareness. That awareness isn't thinking, it is observing thought, and that is the deeper you. You are not your thoughts. You are the field in which they appear and disappear. This realization can be liberating, because if you are not your thoughts, you are also not your worries, your regrets, your judgments. Those are just thought patterns, conditioned responses, mental weather. They come and go. Some are loud, some are subtle, but none of them are who you are. You are not the noise. You are the silence beneath the noise. You are not the content of thought. You are the space in which thought unfolds. Now, this isn't about rejecting thought. Thought has its place. It's a useful tool. It helps you navigate the practical world, solve problems, make decisions, communicate ideas. But like any tool, it is only useful when you are holding it, not when it is holding you. And that is the problem for most people. They don't think, they are thought. They are caught in an endless stream of commentary, assumption, worry, memory, and expectation, without ever questioning whether they are the one producing it. The mind functions like an algorithm. It takes in experiences, forms beliefs, and runs patterns over and over. Many of those patterns were formed early in life through conditioning, family, culture. Some protect you, others limit you, but all of them arise automatically, like reflexes. If someone criticizes you, a thought appears, I'm not good enough. If someone doesn't text back, another thought arises, they must not care. You didn't choose these thoughts. They are programs, scripts. They appear, and then you mistake them for truth. The invitation is to step back, to stop identifying, to become curious, When a thought arises, instead of reacting or believing, simply notice. Ah, there's a thought. Watch it like you'd watch a bird fly across the sky. No need to chase it, no need to gauge it, just let it pass. And then you begin to notice something miraculous. The less you cling to thoughts, the quieter the mind becomes. The more you observe, the less you get pulled in. The more space there is between thoughts. Because peace doesn't come from fixing every thought. It doesn't come from rearranging the furniture inside your mind. It comes from realizing that you are not trapped in the mind at all. You are the vast presence that notices the mind. Thoughts arise in you, not as you. You are not a storm. You are the open sky. And when you begin to live from that space, life changes, not because your thoughts stop, but because they no longer rule you. There's a deep intelligence in this recognition. When you know you are not your thoughts, you are no longer bound by their demands. You stop needing every thought to be positive. You stop fearing negative thoughts. You see them as passing clouds. You learn to rest as the witness. This isn't cold detachment, it is deep compassion. Because when you are no longer fighting your thoughts, you can finally be kind to yourself. You can stop the inner war. You can breathe again. Thought will always try to reclaim the center. It will say yes, but. It will lure you into new debates, new judgments. That's okay. That's just what thought does. But now you know. You don't have to follow. You can let it speak without answering. You can notice it without believing it. And this noticing, this gentle awareness, is more powerful than any belief. Because awareness isn't trying to fix anything, it just sees. And in seeing clearly, the spell of identification begins to break. This is the essence of freedom. Not the absence of thought, but the absence of attachment to thought. Not controlling the mind, but seeing through the illusion that you are the mind. When you live from this space, you find a quiet strength, a stillness that can hold even the most chaotic thought without fear. You no longer need to silence the mind, you simply don't get lost in it. You recognize yourself as the ever-present witness, the spacious awareness in which all things come and go. And in this space, even thinking becomes lighter, more creative, more playful, because it's no longer burdened by identity, it's just one expression of life dancing through you. You are not trying to figure out the meaning of life anymore. You are living it, directly, immediately, without the veil of thought. Not because you've escaped the mind, but because you've remembered who you are beyond it. The idea that stillness is not the absence of noise, but the presence of spacious awareness is one that turns our usual way of looking at peace on its head. We tend to think that in order to experience stillness, the world must quiet down, the traffic must stop, the mind must cease its chatter, the children must go to bed, the inbox must be cleared. Then maybe stillness will arrive. But that is not stillness, that is merely temporary silence. And silence, as beautiful as it is, can be broken in an instant. Stillness is something else entirely. Stillness is not the space between sounds. It is the awareness in which all sounds arise. There is a stillness that exists even in the middle of chaos. It is not something you create. It is something you discover, or rather, uncover, because it has always been there, quietly beneath the surface of your experience. It is like the depth of the ocean. On the surface the waves may crash and roar, but below in the deep everything is calm, everything is unmoving, everything is whole. That stillness is within you, not far away, not hidden behind a wall of effort or discipline. It is present here and now, simply obscured by the movement of the mind. We are so used to identifying with noise, the noise of thought, the noise of emotion, the noise of doing. The world teaches us that being busy means being alive, that a quiet mind is a lazy mind, that if you are not constantly producing, chasing, acquiring, you are somehow falling behind. But all of that noise is surface level. It's like ripples dancing on the water. It's not the water itself. And the more you are entangled with the noise, the more you forget the depth that holds it all. Stillness doesn't mean everything has to stop. It means you are no longer swept up in the motion. You are no longer hypnotized by the flow of thought. You are resting in the awareness that sees it all. And that awareness does not move. It is not pushed around by what arises within it. You might be feeling anxious, but awareness itself is not anxious. You might be experiencing sorrow, but awareness is not sad. It simply sees. It allows. It holds everything with infinite spaciousness, without clinging, without pushing away. To taste this stillness, you do not need to run away to a monastery. You do not need to close the blinds and wait for a quieter moment. You only need to pause right where you are and notice what is always already here. Take a breath. Not a breath to control anything, but a breath to feel what is already alive. Feel your chest rise and fall. Listen to the hum of existence, the distant sound of a bird, the subtle buzz in the room, the thoughts floating by, all of it arising in this space of awareness. And you are the awareness. This space is not a blank nothingness. It is vibrant, alive, alert. But it is not in a hurry. It has no agenda. It does not judge what arises within it. It does not prefer silence over sound, calm over chaos. It welcomes everything. And that is what makes it still. It does not react. It does not grasp. It simply is. When you rest in this awareness, the mind may still chatter, the body may still feel sensations, but you are no longer trying to manage it all. You are not fighting with experience. You are simply being with what is. And in that being, something remarkable happens. The mind begins to slow, not because you are forcing it to, but because you are no longer feeding it. Thought requires your identification to keep spinning. When you stop taking thoughts so personally, they start to lose their grip. When you stop believing every story the mind tells you, the stories fade into the background. And what emerges is a clarity, a presence, a deep, quiet sense that everything is already okay. Stillness is not something that comes and goes. It is not a state you enter and then exit. It is your natural state. It is always here. Even in moments of pain or fear, there is a place in you that is untouched, that has never been disturbed. That place is not an escape from life, it is the foundation of life. It is what allows you to fully feel without being consumed, to fully love without being afraid, to fully live. without needing to constantly control the outcome. When you recognize this stillness, you begin to move through life differently. You are no longer constantly reacting. You are no longer seeking peace from the outside world. You carry peace within you, like a quiet flame. You can walk into a crowded room and still feel the depth of silence within. You can sit in traffic and still be resting in awareness. Because stillness is not a condition, it is your essence. You do not have to find it.